Hey guys, welcome to the weekly sip.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. How's everybody?
I'm feeling amazing.
Well, hey, have conviction. I like that. I like that. Just in time to talk about beneficiary designations, right? So
Mm.
hopefully you'll be amazing after this still, Robin, and doesn't, you know, and we're not going to bore the audience, but it is very important because those nominations, designations, whatever you want to call them, they can get stale based on previous your previous life, etc. So we thought the best thing to talk about today would be to check, double, and triple check who was important in your life 15 years ago, and are they still important to you?
Yes, and
People
and
set it and forget it, but you definitely want to double check your beneficiaries, probably at least annually, just to make sure everything is still aligned the way it should be.
yeah,
Right.
and and beneficiaries, they're on everything, including your property, your life insurance, your retirement accounts, your brokerage accounts, your bank accounts.
Yes.
There's
Right.
so many different assets that have a beneficiary to it. And some people I feel like probably don't even realize that. And it's not only a beneficiary, but you also have the contingent beneficiary, which I feel like we see more times than not left blank.
Right.
Maybe because when they're setting up the account initially, they're like, get to that later or something. So,
Yeah, and
yeah, talk a little.
that later never comes.
Exactly.
Ever.
Right. Well, let's define primary and contingent just for educational purposes. So primary is going to happen first. And if no primary is listed, then whatever asset that we're talking about passes according to a will or revocable trust if you have those documents set up. If you don't, it goes according to the state that you're primary resident of. So when a beneficiary is designated as a primary, it does avoid probate. So you do not have to go through the court system to retitle um, that asset that we're talking about. So that's a benefit of a beneficiary is it doesn't go through probate. Um, Contingent would be if both the account owner and the primary beneficiary are not around, meaning they've predeceased, um, then it goes according to the contingent beneficiary. So Julie, to your point, we see it more common than leaving primary blank is contingent a lot of times are children. And when you have a child that's under the age of 18, then that asset will pass to a trust for their benefit, but then the kid will have access to that account or property when they turn 18, which a lot of our clients we find they don't want their 18-year-old child inheriting fill in the blank
Because that's a lot
without
of
any
responsibility too.
guard. Yes,
Yeah.
lots of responsibilities with no guardrails that could affect the child's decision making if that happens. So contingent beneficiaries based on your family and who you would like that asset to go to. If it is a child, if you do want guardrails, we commonly recommend that a trust under the last will and testament or a trust that is dictated in the revocable trust document.
So it can be very beneficial then if you are doing this for like your children to instead of just directly putting their name to basically create a trust under the will is what you're saying.
Correct. Correct.
And
And
then,
go ahead, Julie.
no, I said, and then the language within the trust then dictates how the monies are paid out and at what ages. So there's a little bit more control over the monies as opposed to if you just put it under their name, it's their money. It would just transfer right to, like, they could transfer right to their bank account, correct?
Correct.
Mhm.
Yes.
The
And
importance of guardrails, as Greg is saying.
Yeah.
Yes, guardrails. Well, and another common response that I see with clients is their eyes get a little bit big because when they hear the word trust, they think complex.
Mhm.
And this isn't necessarily a complex item to add to a will or a revocable trust document. It's maybe a half a page worth of legal language and the trust is set up testamentary, which means after death. So there's no reporting to the IRS on this trust, outside of paying the attorney to draft it. There's no legal fees. It would only be established at death. The money or property will flow into that trust for the benefit of the child, and then whatever person that you name as the fiduciary or trustee would be in charge of that asset for the benefit of the child. So this is a common statement I make, is making sure that your tax, legal, and financial world are all coordinated, because an attorney drafts the document, you sign it, but you actually have to go back and change beneficiary designation forms to make sure that your asset will follow what you're doing in your legal document. So two-step process. Again, primary beneficiary is usually the surviving spouse. Usually, if children are, if it's the desire for children to be the contingent beneficiary, definitely look to see if there's a trust under your will and revocable trust, or if your children are old enough and responsible to handle whatever asset will flow to them, then maybe you can name them outright.
And Greg, real quick, I know that we're almost running out of time here. Can you talk a little bit about, sometimes we see on beneficiary forms that you can check like a box, whether it's like a per stirpes box or a per capita box. Can you explain like the difference and the impact by just
Like, what does
checking a
that
simple
actually
box?
mean?
Yeah, what that could do for somebody who may have passed and where their assets would be distributed depending upon the box that you check.
All right, great question. And I'll use a family that has first generation husband, wife, then you have two children, and then one child has two grandkids, the other child has one grandkid. So per stirpes from the primary client would be 50-50 to two children per stirpes. Where this comes into effect would be if the child predeceases the primary client. So if the child with two kids predeceases and then the primary client dies, the money still goes 50-50 across the two kids, but because that first child has passed, the two grandkids would receive 25% each, and then the surviving child would receive the 50%. So that's per stirpes. I like to use, sometimes I say the bloodline, right? So kid and then grandkids. Per capita would commonly used, at least from my experience, for skipping a generation. So primary client has three grandkids. They can say per capita, which means each grandchild gets 33% each in that scenario. So capita just means equivalent, right? Across, it doesn't matter how many kids one of the child has from a grandkid standpoint, it'll go equally per capita among their grandchildren. So, so you can also name children, grandchildren per capita. So then everything is divided by 5 in that example, 2 children, 3 grandchildren.
Okay.
So definitely something to consider and to talk through to make sure that the asset we're referring to goes according to your wishes.
So make sure, guys, do not set it and forget it. Check your primary and contingent beneficiaries, talk to your financial advisor, get those changes in place if you need some. And thank you for joining us for our weekly sip.
Nice to see you both.
Bye, guys.
Bye.